Welcome everyone. We are going to start 7:05. I appreciate everybody's time, taking time for being here. This is Arithmetic Cyber Chat. We do this every Friday with the exception of holidays like 4th of July. Like last week, we didn't have any cyber chat. But moving on, for every week, if there is no like a public holiday weekend, we are going to have cyber chat. And if you are new, we welcome you to the Arithmetic family. This is Arithmetic Academy. We do this cyber chat every Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern. And the goal behind this is to help educate the community about cybersecurity and cybersecurity issues, cybersecurity topics. So for this month, we are starting off, we'll be looking at cybersecurity frameworks, right? Diving into some of it. And the goal of the next 4 weeks is to share more light on cybersecurity frameworks and give you more insights into it and give you some tools for you to pursue those and also add those as to your toolbox as a cybersecurity professional or as an aspiring cybersecurity professional. I'm Dr. Edu. I'm the founder of Arithmetic Academy. I'm the CEO of Arithmetic Inc., a cybersecurity consulting firm based in New York. And our focus at Arithmetic Inc., or one of our strongholds, is we are a QSA company. So we do PCI DSS assessments or audits, and we do other cybersecurity gigs as well, right? So you are welcome. We are starting off time now. Okay, so topic for today's cyber chat is PCI DSS, and I did a little intro. So Dr. Emmanuel Edu, I'm a former United States Army captain. I'm a cybersecurity expert, cybersecurity consultant. I'm a former professor at University of Maryland Global Campus, UMGC, used to be UMUC. And also I taught at Central Texas College. I'm the CEO of Arithmetic Inc. and the founder of Arithmetic Academy. So the topic today is, what is PCI DSS and how can you start a lucrative career in the PCI DSS industry? So the goal of this presentation, the background for the next 4 weeks, like I said earlier, is to share more light on different cybersecurity frameworks. So we are starting with PCI DSS, and if next week we'll probably still continue with PCI DSS and dive a little bit deep into PCI DSS, and then the following weeks we will look at ISO, we will look at some NIST frameworks, we will look at CIS controls, right? So like we want to give you more tools for your toolbox as a cybersecurity professional or as an aspiring cybersecurity professional, right? So the purpose today is to, raise some awareness about the PCI industry or the payment card industry. And we'll be looking at some of the topics we'll be looking at tonight includes the history of PCI DSS, PCI data breaches, PCI career options or career opportunities, salaries in PCI DSS, and then also PCI security standards. So what we are going to be looking at is not necessarily in this order, but we'll be touching on all these areas. So we'll start with the background of PCI DSS or the PCI industry. But before we do, we have to look at some of the data breaches, some of the high-level ones that you might have come across in the news. And from there, we will build we'll build a case for why the card brands decided to come up with PCI and PCI SSC, PCI DSS. Okay, so for most of our students, they've gone through this. They know about some of these breaches because this is actually part of some of the slides are borrowed from the PCI class. Okay, so if you're in the class, you know. So PCI, talking about PCI, payment card industry, as the name suggests, is about payment cards. So payment cards meaning your credit card or your debit card, right? And everybody on here, everybody uses credit card or debit card in one way or the other, right? To make purchases online or in person, in store. So PCI is a major concern for everybody in the world, right? So you cannot take yourself out of it. Now, for us, is also more special because we are cybersecurity professionals who might want to focus on a career in this area. So PCI, the Payment Card Industry Security Standards Council, their main focus is to make sure that we keep card data safe. So we keep your credit card and your debit card safe, right? And we will be looking at some of the breaches that have happened over the years. So we will start with where is the money, right? There was this famous bank robber whose philosophy was to rob banks. And his main reason was that, I mean, if you ask the question, where is the money? All the money is at the bank, right? Every money that anybody has will end up at the bank. So why go steal from, you know, like a shop or go steal from people's house? It's better to go directly to the bank, right? But that is where you get more money. Now that has changed, or it hasn't really, right? Criminals, their target is where is the money. And now the money, to get the money is to get people's credit card or debit card information, right? Because like the credit card and debit cards you are holding is literally money in your pocket and in your wallet. So if they are able to get their hands on a whole database of credit card and debit card information, you know, it is it's even better than going to the bank to rob the bank, because robbing the bank, you know, a lot of logistics is involved, right? But you can sit at your home and hack into a bank or a merchant or a shop, steal credit card information or debit card information, and you'll be on your happy way, same as, you know, going to the bank physically to rob the bank. So now, with that being said, we will look at some of the data breaches that happened over the years and how much that cost the companies that encountered these data breaches, right? So as we're moving along, if you have any questions or any contributions, you can raise your virtual hand and we will give you the floor, right? And people are still coming in, so bear with me. As we're moving along, we will be admitting people in as we're going along, okay? So the first case study we will look at is American Express. Not American Express, British Airways, right? So British Airways, they had a data breach around 2018. And all these data breaches that we're talking about, they are not just data breaches that bordered on just, you know, sheer data breach, but it borders on credit card and debit card information, right? That is why it is kind of interest to PCI, because PCI covers credit card and debit card, or any form of payment card data, right? So this happened around 2018. And when there is a breach like this, what happens? So the company that suffers the breach, it affects their goodwill or their good name. Their customers' data are also, you know, in the hands of the wrong people now. So customers can sue the company, right? And large sums of money will be lost from that suit, you know, from the company. Also, their stocks can also go down. So, you know, if you are British Airways and this happened to you, are you going to invest more money into making sure that you have the personnel who will be able to protect your cardholder data environment? So are you going to invest more into cybersecurity, and also especially into PCI subject matter aspects among your cybersecurity folks, right? Because when this happens, it's not just you losing stock values, losing your goodwill, customers being angry, and customers not patronizing your services anymore. But then the payment card industry, or like the payment card founders, who, you know, are the people behind PCI DSS, they might also, you know, fine you, or, you know, give you some punitive action, right? And if you're a company and you are not allowed to accept credit card or debit card payments anymore, I don't think you'll be in business for long, right? So this is one of the breaches that happened. It cost them a lot. And another one that we will look at is Adobe. Everybody knows Adobe. So Adobe also suffered a similar fate. Attackers were able to make away with almost 38 million customer cardholder data. So when I say cardholder data, I'm just simply referring to credit card and debit cards, right? So credit card and debit card information, attackers stole almost 38 million customer information. And when this happened, same thing, they will lose a lot of money in terms of lawsuits because you have to compensate your customers for any any form of monetary loss or like a monetary loss that they will suffer, right? So and also you have to also kind of get an identity and identity service, identity protection service, sort of something of those lines for your customers as well. Because if for the next 1 or 2 years, any sort of impersonation that they encounter by somebody using their debit by their debit card or their credit cards, all goes still back to the company that didn't handle the customer's card holder data information well, right? So here they suffered a lot, and money, they lost a lot of money as well, right? Equifax is one of the credit reporting companies in the States. They also suffered a data breach that also bordered on PCI payment card security, right? So they lost a lot of money, and they are still, they still continue to lose money because one of their settlements is not going to expire until 2024. So they have to pay their customers for any claims that they will make from whenever this happened, which was, I think, like a while, almost maybe 3 to 4 years ago, right? And they lost almost $425 million in lawsuits, and they lost, I think, like more than that because they had to do some out-of-court settlements with some non-disclosure, so they will not, they are not going to disclose the amount of money they lost. Now, all these companies are big companies, so they have some kind of reserves, and they will be able to get that money to back this. But if you are a medium-sized company and you suffer a breach like this, you are going out of business, right? You're probably going to be filing for bankruptcy because you cannot deal with customers and how much money you have to pay in court fees and stuff like that. And Target, one of the biggest PCI DSS breaches of all time, right? In 2013 was when this happened, and Target lost a lot of money. They lost a lot of money in settlement, in legal. They lost almost $220 million in legal fees, right? And for customers, I mean, the settlement cost them a lot, and some also they didn't even disclose how much they lost in that instance. And we are not going to go into the details of how these breaches happen, but just to let you know, these happened, and you can Google and find more companies, more popular and big companies that are out there that have suffered data breaches like this, right? Capital One suffered a similar one in 2020. Yeah, I think 2020, and they were fined by the Bureau of Finance or Department of Department of Finance. They were fined almost $85 million, right? That is not part of what they are going to use to settle their customers because they lost almost 100 million plus of credit card and debit card data from their customers. And that was somebody, hacking into their AWS accounts, right? And so these data breaches, as it pertains to PCI DSS and just, on those lines, it costs companies a lot of money. And because of that, companies now are taking keen interest in taking measures to protect their cardholder data. And an example of such measures that they are putting in place is to make sure that they have a robust cybersecurity team. And among the cybersecurity folks, they have people who are PCI DSS SMEs, okay? So with this background, we'll move into why these breaches happen, right? So why do you think these breaches happen to these companies? It's not because they are not lucky or because they are big and attackers wants to attack them. It is because for all these breaches that happen and for all breaches that border on PCI DSS that happens, when these breaches happen, there will be an investigation. So some forensics will go into it. And at the end of it, the report that comes out shows that at the time of the breach, these customers were not in total compliance with all the PCI DSS requirements, right? So they might be in default on one of the requirements, right? And we will talk briefly about the requirements, like the goals and the requirements in PCI DSS. And we also look at some of the security standards within PCI. So most people just know PCI DSS to be the only standard in PCI, but there's more to it, right? So we will look at that. But PCI is like the biggest, or like every other standard within the PCI SSC is supporting PCI DSS, right? That is why PCI DSS is the most popular and the most known. But still, there are more frameworks or standards out there. So we will take a look at that as well, right? So according to research and according to industry facts, companies that suffered these breaches, they were not in compliance with PCI DSS. And if if you are not in compliance and you suffer such a breach, right, there are some punitive actions that will come from the payment card owners or like the payment card brands, right? And aside what you're also going to face from your customers and from your stakeholders, right? So you are going to be hit from different angles, and companies don't want to be going through this because their main focus is to make money and to stay in business, right? So this is the reason behind most of these breaches that we looked at. Okay, so let's move on to some of the, what are some of the top industries that are likely to suffer PCI data breaches, right? So statistically, retail outlets or the retail industry is number 1 on the list. Information and financial is number 2. Food services number 3, and hospitality and accommodation number 4, right? So these industries are most prone to PCI DSS attacks, PCI or PCI data breaches, right? And any company that is not, or any industry not on this list, is not necessarily immune to PCI data breaches, right? It's just that we were just looking at the top 4 or the ones that are most vulnerable, okay? So now let's look at the history of PCI. How did PCI come about, and what is the history behind it, right? So that is what we are going to look at. So we looked at all these data breaches, right? Target, Adobe, British Airways. So when these, before I even get into that, the credit card or debit card that you have, it will have Visa or MasterCard on it, or if you have like American Express, but your card that has Visa or Master is probably issued by your bank, maybe Bank of America, Chase Bank, or all these banks. So my question is, who owns these cards? Is it Chase Bank who issued it to you, or Visa, like the label Visa on it, or like the brand Visa on it? Who is the real owner of the card? And what do I mean by who is the real owner of the card? When there's a data breach and attackers steal money from your card, you're obviously going to go back to the bank, and the bank is going to refund your money back to you, right? Now, who is really going to incur that loss? Is it the bank, or Visa or Master, or if you're using American Express, or or Discover? Anybody want to give it a shot? I mean, except people from the class, from the PCI class, anybody want to maybe give it a shot? Who owns the card, right? And who is going to incur the loss if somebody takes your card, use it for some, you know, like malicious activities, i.e. stealing your money or use it to buy something. And now there's maybe like a $2,000, you know, lost on your card. You are going to file claims. So the bank is going to refund your money back to you, obviously. But who really lost that $2,000? Is it your bank or Visa or MasterCard? Anybody want to give it a shot? Okay, I have 2 hands raised. Let me see. Okay, Lauren, go ahead.
Hi, yeah, Doctor. So I don't. So well, I think it's the bank, because then you go to the bank and then the bank is going to refund your money and all that. So
okay,
maybe it's, for me, I think it's the bank that, you know, runs at a loss.
Okay, what about you, Kofi?
I agree partly with what she just said, but I think eventually the risk will be handled by the actual company, Visa. Maybe they'll split it, but eventually I think it'll get to Visa or American Express.
Okay. Anybody else want to give it a shot? All right, so your credit card or your debit card, so I'll talk about American Express and Discover later, but your card, we're just talking about Master and Visa, right? If you have a card from Wells Fargo, Chase Bank, all these banks, when they issue you a card, it's going to have Visa or Master on it. Now, who owns the money on the card? It's not your bank, it's the card brand. So it's Visa or Master. And if it's from American Express, it's American Express. If it's like a Macy's card issued, you know, through American Express, or Delta card issued with American Express logo on it, it means the card actually belongs to American Express, right? So whoever's logo is on there, it means they are the ones who actually owns the card, and they are the ones who are making the payments on your bank's behalf. Okay, so if there is a loss, your bank is going to give you the money, obviously, and even like that refund, necessarily, like your bank is going to process it, but the money actually comes from Visa and Master, right? It's not necessarily your bank, although your bank is going to also suffer some bruises, but the actual cost goes to the card brands. So if you were the card brand, what are you going to do to make sure that whoever is accepting your card, you know, is keeping it in a safer way? That way attackers wouldn't have their hands on it. Does everybody understand what I'm saying? So if you are going to be the one losing, then you have to make sure whoever is accepting your card for payments, before you allow them to accept your card for payments, they have to agree that they are going to follow some, you know, standards that are set by you. If they decide not to follow those standards, then you're also not going to allow them to accept your card, right? So that is where standards, when it comes to payment cards, or when it comes to using credit and debit cards, come into play. Because when there is a loss, who suffers? And whoever is suffering will have to make sure they have some standards in place. So even if these standards are in place and you are following those standards by the T, and there is still a loss, then at least you did your due diligence. Okay, so we are getting into, I think there are some hands raised. Go ahead, Kofi. Or like that was the old, Kofi and Lauren still have their hands raised.
Sorry, I think it's from the previous.
From the previous one. Okay, then
Dr.
I'm just going to go, yeah.
Dr. Du?
Yes, go ahead, Lauren.
Yes. So right. So if these breaches occur,
Mhm.
who's to blame? Is it the bank for not keeping, like, not being, is it the bank because they didn't keep the PII of the clients well, or is Visa's fault because they had an issue with the PIIs?
Okay, so if there is a breach, right, wherever the breach occurred is the fault of that merchant. So let's say you go to Walmart, you make some purchase. Once you swipe your card, some of your card data is stored, on their service, right? If there is a breach at Walmart, and the attackers are like they are able to steal customers' card information, it's not the fault of the bank or the fault of the card owners. It's the fault of Walmart, because they didn't keep the card information they collected safe, right? So that is why these card brands, they have their own standards that they set for these banks, for banks, one, and also for merchants. So merchant here, when I say merchant, I'm referring to any company that accepts credit card or debit card for payments, right? So if you are an entity that accepts credit card or debit card for payments, because you are accepting credit card and debit card data, you have the obligation of keeping that information safe. And we cannot leave it like the card brands, they cannot leave it to these various companies to come up with their own ways of protecting the card data. So they had the card brands. So when I talk about card brands, I'm referring to the major global card brands, right? So I'm referring to American Express, Discover, JCB, MasterCard, and Visa, right? And for Visa, we have Visa Europe and Visa Inc. for North America, right? So these card brands, it is their cards that, or any company that is accepting debit and credit card, you'll be accepting one of these cards, right? So these card brands, they cannot leave it to the company, like these various companies, to come up with their own standards of how they are going to protect the card, data, because ultimately it is their card, and they have the ultimate responsibility of making sure it is safe. But once it is in the hands of a different entity, they can't really control what the entity does, but they could. And how can they do that? Is by setting up standards of how they are supposed to keep card data. So these card brands, they are not going to set standards for how to manage your whole IT infrastructure or how to protect yourself when it comes to cybersecurity or information security, but they are setting standards for you on how you are going to keep safe their card information that you are collecting from customers who are holding their card. I hope that makes sense to everybody. So these card companies, until 2006, they had their own individual standards, right? So American Express had their own standards, Discover had their own standards. And what I mean by their own standards is they had their own standards of how merchants or companies that are accepting their card should keep the card data to make it safe, right? So they had their own list of things you are supposed to do. So A, may protect cardholder in this way, encrypt cardholder data when you are transferring it from point A to point B. Is that like a whole list? And all of them had their different standards, right? So Discover had their own, JCB had their own, MasterCard had their own, Visa had their own standards, right? And these were the standards that they were using to protect, to make sure that whoever is accepting. So before a company is allowed to accept Visa, Master, American Express, and all these cards, they have to sign an agreement with these card brands, right? That yes, I will stay in compliance. I'll follow your standards that you've set forth for me to follow. If they don't follow, then they wouldn't be allowed to accept these card brands, right? So these companies, or any company that accepts payment cards, they have to follow the different types of standards from American Express, Discover, JCB. So imagine if you're maybe like Walmart or some, shop, small to medium company somewhere, and you are trying to run your business, and at the same time you're accepting debits and credit cards from all these card brands, and you have to follow each of these individually. I mean, that was like a big, headache, right? Even now with one standard, it's still a big headache, but you can imagine that time, that was kind of like a big headache, but likely for them, data breaches in terms of PCI or payment cards was not as frequent, and it wasn't as sophisticated as today, right? But even that time, it was still like a big problem, and they had to follow all these standards, right? So I hope everybody is getting the idea behind. So we are gradually building, the like the blocks for you to understand how PCI came into being and where it came from, and the ideology behind it from the payment, from the card owners, and also from merchants, right? So, and also from like the perspective of banks who are also issuing cards for these card brands, okay? So we are going to look at the history, like how PCI SSC came to be, right? But now we've set the foundation for that, so everybody understands why there were why these card brands came up with standards for companies that wants to accept their cards to follow. Because if there are no standards, then everybody will be doing their own thing. And if something happens, you can't really blame anybody because you didn't give them any standards to follow. So if I'm doing my own thing, you are doing your own thing, and something happens, there's no uniform standard, right? So you can't really fault these companies if they are trying their best, right? But if there are set standards and they don't follow them, obviously you can hold their feet to the fire. So in 2006, right? In 2006, these card brands, or these major card brands, they came together and decided to form an LLC, or a company that is called PCI SSC, right? And the idea behind this was that they wanted to unify all their standards to make it one. So they wanted to unify all their standards to make it one. But then if they unified all their standards, who among the 5 was going to do the day-to-day training and regulation of these standards and doing research within the industry to come up with, proper standards and stuff? So they, you know what, okay, let's set up a different entity outside us that is going to handle this for us, right? So in 2006, American Express discovered JCB, International, MasterCard, and Visa. So when I say Visa, I'm including Visa Europe and Visa Inc. And if you don't know there's Visa Europe and Visa Inc., then don't worry about it, just Visa. So these card brands, these major card brands, global card brands, they are the founding fathers of PCI SSC. And PCI SSC, the full meaning of PCI SSC is Payment Card Industry Security Standard Council, right? It's an LLC, formed. They are based in Massachusetts. So the PCI SSC was formed by these 5 entities, and they all have equal say in PCI, but PCI is run by, people that they've employed, who are running and doing everything else within PCI to come up with the standards and the different types of security standards that they have. And they are the ones who do the training. They are the ones who certify companies to do audits or assessments for these card brands, okay? So the founding fathers, they all have equal share, and also for the governance of PCI SSC, okay? So now everybody understands when we understand what PCI SSC is, then we can jump into the different security standards. That includes PCI DSS, okay? So any questions so far, or everybody's good? All right, if everybody's good, then let's move on. So the goal or the main duty of the PCI Council is to, one, train or create awareness about the standards for keeping card data safe. And they are also the ones who come up with the standards, right, by doing industry research and doing so they are like their industry research is not something that they do in isolation. They have like people like Arithmis Inc. or companies like Arithmis Inc. and other companies contributing to what they think is supposed to be added to what they have in terms of their old standards, right? So they are the ones who also qualify companies to become assessors or auditors. But one thing that they do not do is they are not the ones who will punish any company that does not follow the standard, although they are the ones who create the standard. But punishment for not following the standard is done by the card brands. Okay, so they have an executive committee that has a representative from all these card brands or the founding fathers, and the enforcement of PCI standards and determination of non-compliance is carried out by the individual card brands, not by PCI, right? So PCI, they will do, like, they are the ones who come up with the standards, example, PCI DSS and all other standards. They will do the education of it and they will do awareness training. But if a company is found to be non-compliance, they will suffer the punishment from the owners of PCI SSC, because PCI SSC doesn't issue any card, right? The people who issue the cards are the card brands, and they might issue it individually or through their company, through banks or different outlets. Okay. So I just talked about what PCI SSC is supposed to do. They are a global organization. Anything that has to do with cardholder data security is PCI SSC. So now they are like the front for cardholder data protection across the globe. And the card brands, you know, they are kind of at the backside, right? You know, so they only have to come in when there is a non-compliance issue, or if there is some conflicting issues, then they'll come in. Now, still, although there are like PCI SSC is there with their standards, right, that everybody has to follow, but still, when you go deep into PCI, there are certain little issues, and not issues, but there are like little things that the different card brands also still will require, right? An example is how they classify companies in terms of their levels. All that, like, different card brands have different level, like different classifications, but all that is addressed in a standard like PCI DSS, right? If you are, you know, if you get into any PCI DSS training, whatever training, and if whoever is training you really knows the inside and out, they will take you through all those areas, and it's pretty fun, right? So we've talked about like the role of PCI SSC and the role of the card brands, right? So we are just going to go forward and look at some of the security standards. So PCI SSC, or the PCI Council, they have 4 main standards, right? 4 main standards. Most people are just familiar with PCI DSS, because PCI DSS covers all the different standards are supporting PCI DSS, but they have different standards, and the standards they from PCI PTS, PCI PA-DSS, PCI DSS, and P2PE standard, right? And don't get confused by all these fancy names. When we break it down, it's pretty easy and simple, right, for you to understand. Now we are going to look at them individually. So we talked about all the standards that PCI SSC or the PCI Council has come up with so far. We have the PCI Data Security Standard, that is PCI DSS, which is what we are going to be looking at this week, and probably next week we will still dive into it more. more deep into it. And they have the payment application data security standard, that is PA-DSS. They have point-to-point encryption standard, that is P2PE. And they have the PIN transaction security point. So they have the PTS, and under PTS, we have HSM, which is the hardware security module and the PIN standards. And we also have the PIN transaction security point of interaction, right? So let's look at them individually and what they cover, right? At least today, you are going to know that PCI security standards is not only PCI DSS, right? There is more to it. And we were just going to do a brief overview of it. So PCI DSS covers the security of any. So I'll just look at who is liable to stay in compliance with PCI DSS, right? So PCI DSS, any company or any entity that accepts credit card payments, and not just accept credit card payment, but if they store, process, or transmit card data, then they have to stay in compliance with PCI DSS. And that is almost every company, right? So any company that accepts credit card and they store, process, or transmit. So the key word here is if they store, process, or transmit cardholder data or account data, then they have to stay in compliance with PCI DSS, right? And if they have to stay in compliance with PCI DSS, when we go deep into PCI DSS, we will determine their level, and based on their level, we'll, like that will show what type of, like what they need to do to prove their like what they need to do to show that they are in compliance, right? So if you are level 1, you have to have an assessor, a QSA company like Arithmis Inc. to come and do on-site assessment. If you are level 2 to level 4, you can do what we call the SAC, that is a self-assessment questionnaire, right? Together with your vulnerability scans, and you can use that, right? And even that, you can still have a QSA company do the questionnaire for you or fill it out for you, right? And so who qualifies to be level 1, level 2, level 3? We can't dive into all that, but it is mostly based on the amount of transactions that you have in a year, right, as a company. So companies that maybe probably if they have like 6 million and above transactions, they might be classified as level 1 per maybe one card brand. If they have maybe 2.5 to 3 million, they might be classified as level 1 per a different card brand, right? So the different card brands, they have their own standards of how they classify merchants as level 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5, right? But we can't get into all those technicalities in this. This is just to create more awareness and let you know what is out there, right? So if you are taking your training anywhere, then you have to know exactly what you have to, you know, these are some of the things that you have to be look out for, right? People think just PCI DSS is only about the 6, if you know just the 6 goals and the 12 requirements, that is it. That is not it, right? So just knowing it doesn't really mean anything. How do you really understand it and how do you implement it? Or if you want to do an assessment, how do you go about doing the assessment, right? So more goes into it than just, okay, reading, these are the 6, these are the 12, this is this, that is that. That is not just it, right? If that was it, then there will be no need for PCI SSC, I think, right? So for any company that accepts credit card or debit card data that stores, transmits, or process cardholder data or account data, they have to stay in compliance with PCI DSS, okay? So now let's look at PCI PA-DSS. What is it? So PCI PA-DSS borders on payment application. And what is payment application? When you go to Walmart or CVS, right, or any shop, and you are doing self-checkout, right? You know, self-checkout, they have the POS there. You touch and select maybe if you have like some items, and then you just go ahead and start scanning. Right now, that software that you are, interacting with, that is a payment application, right? If you are paying at the cash register and say there's somebody there, scanning your stuff, the software they are interacting with on the computer they are using, that is what we are referring to. That is what we call payment application. So any application that is used to accept payment is called payment application or payment software, right? If that makes it more easier for you to understand. So there is a standard that ensures that payment software is also whatever payment software you are using to accept credit card payments or debit card payments are secure. Okay, so the standard is called payment application data security standard. A payment application data security standard. So this helps PCI to monitor applications that organizations are using to accept card holder data or credit card or debit card information. Okay, so there is an assessment or there is an audit that is done only on the payment applications. Okay, and also when you like under PCI DSS, there is a session that also touches on payment application assessments. Okay, so that is what I was saying. All these other standards, they all go to help PCI DSS standard. Okay. All right, so let's move on. Now we will look at P2PE. So P2PE, there are softwares out there that serve as a point-to-point encryption software. And what does it do? It helps to encrypt your credit card and debit card information that is being accepted by the merchant and being transmitted to whichever area that they are transmitting it to, right, for authorization to go through. So any software that is being used as an encryption point-to-point software, that software also has to meet PCI security standards. And the specific standard that they've made that we use to assess these software to ensure that they are also in compliance before you use it as a company or as a merchant, that standard is what we call the P2PE. Okay, so P2PE standard. Now we will look at the PCI PTS. So the PTS, we'll look at one here and maybe probably like the other versions of PTS. So PCI PTS covers anything that has to do with hardware that we are using to accept payment card, right? So your POS, they have like some, handheld POS devices, and you put in your PIN, like you swipe your card or dip your card and put in your PIN, or some of it is even contactless. So you do the contactless. Now that hardware, right? We can't just let anybody manufacture any payment application hardware, right? And without going through a vigorous check to make sure that everything that is supposed to passes and it is safe. So what standard is PCI using to check this? The standard is what we call PCI PTS. Okay, and for PCI PTS, we have the POI, which borders on point of interaction. So point of interaction is at a point where you are dipping your card or you are swiping your card, right? And at that point, information that you are accepting, that the merchant is accepting, has to be encrypted. But then the system or like the machine or the hardware you are using has to meet a certain standard, and that is what PCI PTS addresses, and the POI version also will address. Okay. Now we'll look at the PTS PIN security standard as well. So the PIN security covers anything that has to do with the PIN that you are typing in, right? If you swipe or you dip your card, they might ask you to type in your PIN for your card. If it's a debit card, that PIN, how it is being handled by the hardware that you are typing it in, also has to meet the hardware manufacturer has to meet a certain standard that will qualify it to be safe for anybody to use to accept card information or your PIN, and that standard is the PIN security, right? And the last one we will look at for the PTS is SHM, and SHM for anybody who's gone through maybe security plus training. If you remember your stuff well, you should know SHM. SHM is it's a standalone device, right? That is used to mostly do cryptographic, handle cryptographic keys, and also help your hardware, like whatever it might be, if it is like a standalone endpoint or a server or anything, or like a point of sale system. It helps with cryptographic key management, right? So the PTS HSM side, that is what, like what standard that is that PCI security is also pushing, right? So as you can see, even within PTS, there are like 3 or 4 different security standards that has to be met, right? So as you can see, there is a lot that goes into the PCI security standards. And even so, everything that we've looked at, right, all these standards, when you go into PCI DSS, it covers all these standards as well. But then we have all these standards also as standalone standards. Okay, so any company, so if I'm doing an assessment and you've met PA-DSS, that makes it easy on you, because when I get there, I'm just going to look at your like whatever certification of attestation that you have. I'm going to look at it. If it's good, then I'll probably just, you know, not redo that assessment, but just move on to the next thing on the list. Okay. So now let's look at some PCI career options, right? So what are some of the roles and responsibilities of PCI SME, and what are some of the salaries that is associated with this, right? So what are some of the career opportunities in PCI, in the PCI industry? Or if you want to work as a cybersecurity professional with your specialty in PCI, what are some of the things that you can do in an organization, or what can you even do? What do PCI SMEs do? So like we talked about, now in cybersecurity, right, PCI is not like a standalone area. It's a small niche within cybersecurity, and it's arguably one of the very lucrative areas of cybersecurity, right? And for a QSA company, we know what we're talking about, because when you do audits, one audit, you know, you can earn so much within an audit. And also for companies that we are auditing, or companies that we do assessment on, an assessment is just a point in time. They have to meet compliance in every 12 months when we do the assessment. But that is not really it. They have to meet compliance all year long, right? And for any cybersecurity team that you find anywhere in any company, most of them don't really know anything about PCI. Frankly, if there is anybody here who is working in the industry and they are part of any cybersecurity team, they can like they should let me know, right? And it may be probably if they've been working longer, they should let me know how many people on their team really knows PCI inside and out, aside just knowing there are 6 requirements and there are 6 goals and 12 requirements, and this is this and that is that, right? But going deep into it as to how to help the organization to pass or to stay in compliance, you know, that is like a different whole area on its own. So with these breaches causing companies huge sums of money, and also whenever it is time for an assessment, PCI assessment, you know, it's like there is a huge problem in the organization, because everybody's running around. Even for organizations that have done this so many times, right, they still go through issues. And, you know, cybersecurity professionals, they are always scratching their heads up about, I mean, what do I really need and stuff like that. And the point of passing the assessment is not, you know, all be all. If you have a PCI subject matter expert who is helping the organization or leading the PCI program all year long, it is better than just winging it and passing your assessment and then going back, to bed. Because Target, when they were breached, they had just passed the assessment, probably like, I think, a week ago, but they were still breached. Now you might ask how. The how is that assessment is a point in time thing, right? So if at a point in time you passed, it can be that tomorrow or in the next 5 hours, you are no more in compliance because you have, like, maybe probably something changed on your infrastructure, or maybe you added something, or there is a 0-day vulnerability, or a whole different variety of things can go into it. Now let's get to what are some of the job opportunities. So as a PCI DSS subject matter expert, you are going to be the guy or the girl in the organization who is going to help the organization to stay in compliance all year long, right? So your role can range from a variety of, like a whole list or a whole catalog of roles that we are going to look at shortly, right? So you can be the lead, you can be the owner of their PCI program, running the entire PCI program. So everything that you're going to be doing, we will call it, you can work as an implementer. And what do we mean by implementer? So as an implementer, you are the one in the organization making sure that they stay in compliance and they meet all the 12 requirements and the sub requirements, right? And not just meeting it by reading, okay, this is this, that is that, but you really understand it and you understand the situation of the organization by understanding like their business governance or like their business goal, right? And also understanding the infrastructure and how you'll be able to implement the PCI requirements and make sure they stay in compliance, and not just stay in compliance by passing their assessments, but then making sure they are not, I'll say they are not vulnerable and easily, like they don't become a low-hanging fruit for attackers, right? So we will look at some of the job titles, and we will talk a little bit about what each of these job titles will entail, right? And also for PCI, so which organizations employ PCI subject matter experts? Now, I'll also ask you which organizations accept credit card and debit card payments, right? Almost everybody, right? So meaning you can work in any industry. So first, we'll talk about industries first before we go to specific. So you can work in the financial industry, work for banks, work for merchants, work for like the food industry, work for retail, work for hospitality, because hotels, everybody accepts credit card and debit card. So you can work anywhere. And all these companies and industries, they are looking for PCI subject matter experts, right? So to be a PCI subject matter expert, I see this a lot on LinkedIn, and I just smile. There are a lot of people who are parading, they just put in their tagline, PCI DSS. Well, that is good, but what do you really know, right? That is the point. Like when it comes down to it, is what are the skills and the knowledge that you are bringing to the table, right? To help the organization stay. So just saying, or just parading around that you're a PCI DSS SME, that is not enough. But you have the knowledge and the skill to back it. And can you really speak intelligently to it and do an analysis of an organization's situation now and be able to speak to it that, okay, we need to do A, B, C, and D. If they don't have a PCI program, how do you go about setting up a PCI program for them, right? Like, what are the building blocks? What are some of the PCI awareness training that you're going to do for the entire organization, and then also for the IT group and for the cybersecurity group, to help them to be more aware and to help the organization to stay safe, right? So you can work in any organization, but you, as the subject matter expert, a lot is expected of you. So you have to have, you have to get the knowledge and the skill that will help you to really meet that expectation, right? And if you have that knowledge and skill, I think you can scale any interview easy. Because first off, most cybersecurity professionals they're not really deep into, most of them don't know much about PCI. And because they don't know doesn't mean you can also BS your way and they wouldn't know, right? So even if they don't interview and they allow you in and they are expecting you to be the PCI god, right? You are the one who is going to help them solve their PCI problems and you also don't know anything. And then you might run into issues. So what is the demand and supply ratio for PCI SMEs? So before we look at specifically PCI SMEs, what is the demand and supply ratio of cybersecurity professionals? Right. So I think last 2 weeks-ish, we looked at, last 2 weeks or last 3 weeks, we looked at the cyberseek.org website that shows us the current demand of cybersecurity professionals in real time. So currently there are over 700,000 on-field cybersecurity jobs, right? And within that, we see that the demand is high, the supply is low, right? So if there are all these jobs out there, they don't have the personnel to fill it, right? PCI is a niche within cybersecurity. So even if now we are in short of cybersecurity professionals, what about PCI professionals within cybersecurity? Probably maybe non-existent, right? So the demand, I will tell you, is very high because most organizations, they are really in dire need of PCI subject matter experts, right? So not just PCI subject matter, you are going to be the PCI subject matter expert, but to be a PCI subject matter expert, you are also a cybersecurity subject matter expert, okay? So that is why in our training, we make sure you are good when it comes to general cybersecurity, but when it comes to PCI, you are not just good, but you are really on top of your game. So you are among the top 3 or top 5. If we pick anybody or anybody from anywhere in the industry, you'll be way up there, right? So the demand for cybersecurity professionals is high. The supply is almost non-existent, right? And what type of training do I need to begin a PCI career? So for training, for PCI, you wouldn't see, I've not really seen around any PCI DSS training that is very robust and that will help you to get to where you want to get to, like the one that we are offering at Eurythmics Academy. So not to just blow Eurythmics Academy's horns, but I can assure you we are offering the best PCI training out there. And also to add to that, if you want to take PCI training anywhere, make sure who is really giving the who is giving the training. Is the person giving the training a qualified PCI assessor or like a qualified PCI anything from PCI SSC, right? Is the company giving the training? Are they in any shape or form related to a PCI company that is actually in the industry performing PCI assessments, and they know what is going on and they know what you need, right? Those are some of the questions that you should ask yourself before you get into, because there are a lot of little trainings here and there. Somebody is teaching PCI on Udemy and stuff. Those ones, then you might as well just Google it and read whatever you can get, right? Because that is what they are doing. They Googled it and packaged it in some training and you're just reading it to you, right? But if you need training that is going to dive deep into PCI and really help you to understand the ins and outs and how to really apply it, but not just to read stuff. Reading is easy. Anybody here can read and understand. But when it comes to the technicalities of PCI, you might read it all right, but it is going to be like you reading Chinese and you don't understand Chinese, right? So you can read it, it'll sound good, but do you really know how to implement it, or do you really know how to go about it, right? So if you need training, I'll frankly encourage you to look at Eurythmics PCI training. Or if you want to go elsewhere, or if you had some training elsewhere, because I don't really know what we were taught, maybe you can, how you'll be able to test your knowledge is to start, applying for jobs, start going on the job market and start doing interviews. That will really help you to gauge whatever training that you have, right? And not just for PCI, but for any cybersecurity training that you take, right? If you want to gauge, your level, start doing interviews. That will help you to really know that what you were learning, was it some, were they just teaching you air, or you're actually learning something that is needed in the industry, okay? So training obviously is big because you need the knowledge and the skill to begin a cyber PCI career. And where do you begin? So you begin with knowledge and skill, right? You begin with knowledge and skill. Now within PCI, because there is no, like the demand is high and there is literally no supply, companies are not necessarily going to be looking for 15 years of experience in PCI. I mean, if they have, they have all those on there, then it's probably HR who is doing copy and paste, right? Either than that, they want somebody who have the skills and the knowledge. That's it. Not, any 15 years or 20 years or none of that. Can you do the job? That is really what they are looking at, okay? And what are the salary ranges? We will look at the salary range here shortly. Okay, so these are some of the job titles in PC, and this is no shape or form all of the job titles that are out there. There is a whole lot of job titles out there, but this is just some of the ones that we compiled for this chart. Okay, so you can be a PCI compliance analyst, PCI ISA within the organization, PCI media impact, PCI compliance officer, PCI security officer, PCI compliance analyst, IT and security compliance, into brackets, PCI DSS, PCI security and compliance analyst, PCI security. Okay, so that is the same thing. Principal PCI, principal PCI compliance, IT compliance analyst with PCI, senior analyst, PCI compliance, IT, PCI cyber compliance manager, PCI. So the list is endless, right? But I can tell you one thing though. Aside whatever job title you're going to handle, that you're going to assume in PCI, you're pretty much going to be doing the same thing, right? And the same thing meaning if you understand PCI inside and out, and not just PCI DSS, but you have a good working knowledge of all the other standards, you will be able to work in any of these job titles, right? So PCI manager, PCI analyst, PCI this, PCI, all of it, you are pretty much going to be doing the same thing, but they need to give you a job title. So that is why we have this whole list. Okay. So now let's look at some salaries. So we will start off with the general average salary of a cybersecurity professional, right? So by the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, as of 2021, May of 2021, almost a year and change ago, the median annual wage for an information security analyst was 102,000, right? So 102K, let's say like 100K. So that is the median, like 100K. And they also went ahead to say that like the lowest percentile, or like the lowest percentage in terms of salary for security professionals was 61,000, and the highest, like the top 10, like the highest, not the top 10, like the highest in the food chain, they earn more than 165, right? So I would say the highest in the food chain, PCI falls within the highest in the food chain. That is all that I'll say, right? So you can do your own research about that. And for some of the little, if you just Google around and see ZipRecruiter and all these other places, ZipRecruiter says for PCI jobs, it's 110 to 176. Some quarters say 120 to 250. Some quarters say 135 to 280, right? So now, but frankly, from where I sit, I can tell you, if you take like Arithmetic PCI training, right, you shouldn't ask for anything below 140, right? If you don't like money, just take 130, but you shouldn't take anything below 140. It should be 140 and up. That is what I would say. But if you like, you don't want to bargain, or you don't know how much, like what you are worth, and you want to take something below, then that is you. Because for our students who are not taking PCI, who just did mainstream cybersecurity, they are earning upwards of 100 to 120 plus, right? So if you take PCI and you specialize in an area and you still want to take 100, then I don't really know, maybe you don't like, but for what I've seen in the industry, anything above 140, if you are even beginning in PCI, that is what I'll go for. Okay. Now, if you have some, years under your belt doing other cybersecurity stuff, then I'll probably be shooting for 170, 160, 170 up. Okay. So for salary wise, that is what I will take if I was supposed to go get a PCI, and not taking into consideration, or like what I know and like what I do. If I didn't know anything and I'm getting into PCI, I'll be looking for 140. Okay. Okay, so Fred is asking, who is the highest employer of PCI experts? So are you referring to industry or company specific? I'm not sure, but Fred, just hold your question. I'll have you ask that live and then we'll talk about it. Okay. All right, so I think like we are at the end of this. Today, we are not going to get too technical and too deep into it. We will do that next week, get into some of the very technical and fun areas. So there's a flyer for our PCI course. And I think I'm going to show you guys something today, right? So that way, even if you don't want to take our course, or you think, oh, Arithmetic is here to promote their course, which I think we will say yes, because our course is the best out there, right? But I'm going to show you something from PCI SSC, right? So to show you that Arithmetic really BSN, or Arithmetic Inc. is a qualified QSA company, right? It's very easy for you to check, and anybody can do this. Okay. Oh, sorry. So, Mr. Ephraim, SME. When I kept saying SME is subject matter expert. Sorry about that. Right. So, for our training, we have. I'll talk more about our training, but I just want to show you guys this real quick. Okay. All right, everybody. I hope everybody can see my screen, right? So this is what I'm going to show you guys. This is the PCI SSC website. So this is where PCI DSS comes from. PCI SSC is the organization that comes up with the standards, right? So whoever is, they are the ones who are also going to qualify a company to be an assessor or an auditor. They are the ones who qualify an individual to be an assessor or an auditor, right? So, but they have to qualify a company first, and the company will present whoever is going to be the auditor, or their list of people who are going to be auditors. Now, because of that, PCI SSC, they keep a catalog of, I would say, active audit companies and active auditors, if we want to put it that way. So, but they normally, so for PCI, they don't call auditors, they call them assessors, right? But I don't want to get you confused by saying assessors and you don't know what that is, but auditor is general, everybody understands what an auditor does, right? So if you want to take any training anywhere, or anybody wants to teach you PCI or whatnot, there's only one way to find out if they really know what they're talking about, right? Because if they just Google it, you can also Google it and try and figure it out. But like, are they really, have they been approved by PCI, or have they gone through PCI? Are they working in the industry as PCI assessors, or any of those titles? Well, there's one way to find out. So this is the PCI website, and the PCI keeps a catalog of all active or PCI QSA companies in good standing. So let's check Arithmetic Inc. So when you come here, you go to PCI qualified professionals, okay? And you choose whichever professional that you're looking for. So for us, we are a QSA company, right? So they have QSA companies, P2PE assessors, they have qualified PIN assessors, internal assessors. So we are a QSA company, so we're just going to click on QSA. Right now, it'll come down here. So here you can type in the company to see whether the company is in good standing or they have been listed. If they have been listed by PCI, it means they are in good standing. So let's check Arithmetic Inc. So just type in Arithmetic, it brings it out. Now Arithmetic Inc. is right here, right? So we are not just saying we are a QSA company, we are not. We've been listed by PCI, and you have to go through a very rigorous assessment and pass like a couple of background checks and standards and stuff before you become a QSA company, right? So Arithmetic is right here, right? And I'm the point of contact on here. So let's check myself, right? You can also check individuals to see whether they are PCI anything. And mostly it's first name. You have to type my, and then your, okay, so right there. So that is me right there. And the company that took me to be an assessor or to be a QSA is Arithmetic, right? This is my certification. This is the number. This is when it's going to end. I just renewed it last month because every year as a QSA, you have to renew your, and my status is valid, right? So if anybody is teaching you anything, you can check them out here, okay? And also this is like somewhere for you to come and find, you know, some PCI information and stuff like that, right? So we will probably wrap it up today and open it up for questions. And next week, we will get into some more PCI technical areas and to open it up more for people to understand what really goes into. So we can even take like a case study for like an assessment, look at some, you know, diagrams and stuff. And really, you know, make sure you really understand what PCI covers and, you know, what PCI entails, okay? Okay, so Fred had some questions in here. I'm going to address Fred's questions and then move on. So Fred is asking, is there a high renewal fee for QSA certification? So Fred, QSA certification, first is the company that is certified as a QSA, right? The individuals, they are just holding the QSA title because the company has it. So for QSA renewal every year, for the company and for the individual, yeah, there is a very high fee that you have to still pay. So aside being in like aside meeting like the requirements, right? The monetary side, you still have to make like the renewal payments and stuff to stay in compliance. So like just meeting it in terms of like the technical side and like your work that you've done over the year and stuff like that. Yeah, all that, if you meet that, that is good, but you still have to, you know, cough up the money. Right, so yes. And for, okay, SM. So Fred was asking, who is the highest employer of PCI experts? So I think the answer to your question is, who needs PCI experts more, right? So from the list that we looked at in terms of companies that are more susceptible to PCI data breaches, retail was number one, and number two was, I don't really remember number two, but financial was in there. I think they were number two, like financial institutions. And then we had like hospitality institutions and hospitals. I think they were the four. So my best bet will be on those four, right? But I don't have any like statistical data to back it up. But just looking at it from the point of view that these are the most vulnerable, I think they will be the most, and plus like these companies are like that, those industries are also big. So they need a lot of subject matter experts when it comes to PCI DSS. Yes, insurance companies also, yes. Insurance companies, yeah, they also play a big role. Isaac, go ahead.
Hi, Doc. Thank you. Good to see you again, Doc. I have a question. After taking the course with the remits for the PCI program, looking at the PCI security standards website, now I see under the PCI qualified professionals, there's a list of, I would say, positions there, like point-to-point encryption assessors, qualified PIN assessors, qualified security assessors, and on and on. Now, when we did that program, where do you begin?
Okay, so today's presentation, we didn't get into who is who in PCI, right?
Okay.
But all those that you saw, you saw like they had ISA, they had like P2PE assessors, they had, so all those, like we talked about, like the standards, right? The 4 main standards that PCI has: PCI DSS, PA-DSS. So all those they have, you can be a PA-DSS assessing company or a PA-DSS QSA company, right? And all you do is to assess payment applications. You can be a P2PE assessing company, and you have a qualified P2PE assessor. All they do is assess point-to-point encryption software or solutions, right? You can be, so you can, like, your company can like qualify for any of those, right? But overall, for you, what you need is the skills and knowledge for PCI DSS, because all those standards are supporting PCI DSS. Because in PCI DSS, we touch on all those standards, right? So by the time we get there, the company should have maybe gone through that assessment and passed the payment application side of it. And mostly for merchants, for instance, the payment application side, it doesn't really necessarily fall on the merchants. It falls on the owners of the software. So if it is off-the-shelf software that they are using, the merchants are advised to use one that has been approved. So one software that has passed the PA-DSS assessment, right? And they've been approved and listed on the PCI SSC website. If they don't and they use like any other one that they want, that is fine. Me as an assessor, when I come, I have to make sure they meet like the requirements as set forth in PCI DSS requirements, right? So for you, don't get carried away by, okay, I want to be a P2PE, or I want to be, because like that is not like something even for you, okay?
Okay.
Your main focus is, because if you want to be P2PE, then you will just be working with software companies that have to stay in compliance with the P2PE standard, right? And that is limited because that is not even a requirement according to PCI DSS. A company can choose not to use like a solution that has been listed as passing P2PE standard, right? And they will still be able to pass their PCI DSS assessment. Overall, is the PCI DSS standard that you need to master, right? That you need the skills and knowledge in, because that is where almost every organization, or not almost every organization that accepts credit card and debit card, they have to meet that standard. Now, P2PE, not everybody has to meet it, right? PA-DSS, not everybody has to meet it, right? So if you want to go that tangent, you kind of really get into some areas that is not really going to be of beneficial, like that will like benefit you. So like today, I intentionally didn't talk about like qualifications and QSAs, and because most people get too hung up on it. When it comes to PCI, it's a different ball game than the normal general cybersecurity industry where, oh, I have security plus, I have security analyst, I have CISSP. It is not like that in PCI, right? So if you see I'm a QSA, don't be like, oh, I also want to be. You can be a QSA, but then you have to go through some steps, right? And it's not like you can just go take a QSA exams and become a QSA. It doesn't really work like that for, I mean, for CISSP and all the rest, CISA, it's easy, you can just go take it. But here, you know, you have to go through like that, like mail, right? So you have to go through the mail. And eventually it is going to be a QSA company that can help you to become a QSA, right? So you have to, and plus if you become a QSA, every year the company will have to cough up the money for you to do the renewal, right? So you have to be able to be making the company some money, really. You know, so I mean, like that is a different ballgame. But for you, you don't need any of that. Like the closest that you can get to in terms of just writing some certification and say, you know, I have it, is PCI-P. That is PCI professional, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think, just for writing the certification is like, don't go, I mean, we'll probably talk about that next week, but it's, you know, some high money, right? But still, that's, you don't need that, because an organization who wants to employ you to become a PCI subject matter expert, they are not really looking at, and plus, how many people even know PCI, right? So if you have it, okay, I mean, but they don't even know what that is. But if you have the knowledge and skill, and okay, you guys need this and this and this, I'll be able to do A, B, C, and D, and this is how to do this. Now that is what they are looking for, right? You want to become the subject matter expert there, that is going to help solve their PCI headaches, right? Because we had like one student, he started work, and the first thing his boss told him, hey, you're going to be the PCI guy, so find some training, right? His boss, they've done PCI, like they've passed the assessment for like the past 4 years. He has no clue like what is going on. And like he's in charge of like the whole IT and cybersecurity group. That is like, okay, this is some material, read it, go find some PCI training, you know, and then come take over PCI. So if you don't know anybody offering any PCI training or wherever you are going, if they are selling you air, you know, then you might as well just go spend the money and still come back and really wouldn't be able to function and help the organization as they are expecting you to. Okay, so I hope that answers your question.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Isaac, go ahead. Second, Isaac.
Hello, Doctor. Thank you so much for this time talking about PCI DSS. Now, I just wanted to say something. Someone reached out to me online via LinkedIn, and they claim, now I'll use the word claim, they claim that they are QSA certified and all that kind of. So, you know, not wanting to shut it down, I wanted to find out more information about them so that I can make a meaningful assessment about them and what they have to offer. So I engaged them, I engaged him, and he was telling me about how much he charges for his program, and he charges 15,000. Okay, the money would be one thing.
Well, you are coming in broken.
So that's what I wanted to
Can you like, is it me or Isaac is coming in broken for everybody?
I can't hear.
It's broken.
Yeah, we can't, all of us, we can't hear him. It's broken.
Okay, Isaac, you are coming in broken.
To use it for selling air.
Yeah, so Isaac, you know what, you can type it in the chat and I'll read it for everybody. But you're coming in really broken, so I think most people couldn't hear you, but you're making like a really good point. I think.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Can you hear me now? Is my line better?
Yeah, so I can hear you now, but if you come in broken, I'll let you know. So go ahead, please. You can start from there.
All right, I'll summarize real quick. Yeah, someone reached out to me via LinkedIn. They claim to be QSA certified and offering PCI DSS training. I decided to engage them to see and hear what they had to offer, and they were charging their course $15,000. And I just looked them up and their company on that website that you provided, and guess what? No results. Nothing shows up. So back to what you were saying, there are many people out there who are selling air, who are claiming to be what they are not. So Eurythmics is legit. It's 100% legit, you know. So that's what I wanted to say.
Okay. Thank you, Ike, for that insight. So Iyak is asking, is it possible to get access to this meeting recording? I'm on. Okay, yes. So this recording will be posted on our YouTube channel once we are done. So, and for everybody, I think I probably just have to, I'm really terrible about that. You know, I have to let you guys know our YouTube channel and all that, but mostly I'm more concerned about, you know, like the content and what you are getting out of this, not just to go like our YouTube channel. I mean, I really care less. What you get from this is what is more important, right? Whether you like our YouTube channel or not, or check it out. But it is going to be posted on the YouTube channel anyways. That is the best way we will be able to get it out to you, rather than sending video to everybody. And this is going to be like an hour and change. So it's not possible to send it via, you know, any other channel. Mr. Walker is asking, when will PCI DSS be replaced with PCI SSF, and why? When will it be replaced? Well, from where I'm sitting, I don't think this is going to be replaced any soon. So, I mean, I wouldn't be able to tell you why, because on the PCI's website, I mean, they have like general information for everybody, but on the backside, as QSA companies and stuff, we get a lot of like correspondence about what is going on and what is going to happen. And I've not come across PCI DSS being changed to PCI SSF. Okay, so we have some, like, I think it's monthly or quarterly meetings that we have and stuff. And also for, like, let's say, so now PCI version 3.2.1, that is still in use, is being replaced by version 4, right? But it's going to take 2 years. Both of them are running side by side for the next 2 years, and then they'll drop off version 3.2.1 to version 4. So when they were working on version 4 and everything, we were in the loop. We were sending, like, they were asking for everybody's contribution. And when I say everybody, everybody who is a QSA company or PA QSA company or all those. So you send your contributions and they compile it and stuff. So like when they loop, and we knew that was coming. So if anything is coming, we will know, right? So maybe if you saw that somewhere, I mean, from where I'm sitting, it's just a matter of emails away of going to my PCI portal. We have like a special portal that we go, that is where we submit our assessment and stuff. And that is where we see everything like behind the scenes, that I've not seen anything like that, right? So Mr. Walker, I've not seen anything like that. Okay, I think there were some questions here. Okay.
Doc, before you proceed to the next question, I was just trying to find out. So what is the difference between the version 3 and version 4? Is there any big change, or what is going on with that?
Oh, okay. So mostly when they started in 2006, when PCI SSC was set up and they came up with the new, like the first framework, it was version 1, right? And then they came up with version 1 point whatever, and they went to version 2. They went to version 2 point something. They went to, so it came up to version 3. So every almost every 2 years to 3 years, they improve upon it. And reason being that, you know, the industry is growing. There are more things that are being, you know, added, more technology, things are growing. So they can't be using one standard for the next 5 years, right? That is really not going to help, because even for the version 3, like I saw some stuff that I thought, I think this should be changed, right? So an example is, if you take goal, like the first goal, that is build and maintain a secure network. And the requirement, the first requirement 1, talks about you have to set up, like the organization has to have firewall and like routers in place to protect the network, right? We don't use only firewalls and routers to protect the network, right? But this was like this, like they made 3.2.1 in 2017, 18, right? But now there is almost like a bucket list of software and hardware that we can use to protect the network. So those were some of the things. And even for the wording, like there are certain areas they're referring to card holder data. But I thought, I was thinking it's supposed to be account data, because account data covers more than card holder data. But so like surprisingly, it's like they were reading my mind, and like those were some of the contributions that as arithmetics we also sent. But so the changes between version 3.2.1 and version 4 is not that much. They just made changes to some of the wording and some of the things that were kind of not inclusive. They made it more inclusive. So for example, for what I just talked about like firewalls and routers, now they are talking about, not just firewalls and routers, but any device, any like security device that is used to ensure that your network is secure, right? So the changes are not big. Okay. It's still the same 6 requirements, 6 goals, 12 requirements, right? But under the sub requirements, they've made little changes here and there to some of the wording, but mostly they don't, like, it's not like they're going to change it that now it's like 10 goals and 25 requirements. Mostly they just tweak it a little bit. Same thing with all like the certifications. All the certifications in cybersecurity, every 2 to 3 years, they make changes to it to adjust it to industry standard and what is going on currently in the industry. Because if not, then your certification is really going to be obsolete. So you have to keep up with industry standard and industry knowledge, and what is really going on in the industry, to make sure that your certification is giving people who are taking it the skills and the knowledge that they need, right, to be able to function and work. Because after taking your certification, if it is worth its salt and they are going to work and they think they have the skills, you don't want them to get that shock on the job. They're asking them stuff, and what is like from 10 years ago, right? So the changes is not really big, right? It's not really big. But like in the training, we cover both. So we cover 3.2.1 first, because that is what we're still using. Most organizations will switch to 4.0 in 2 years. But like the ones who really want to be up to speed on everything they are the ones who are probably looking for 4.0. But also caveat to that is no QSA company is certified to do an assessment on 4.0. Nobody.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I get it.
The training for 4.0 will be coming out, I think, next month. So if anybody is claiming, our company, we are the ones who can, is a big lie. Nobody. Okay. All right, Kenny. Any more questions for the group? All right. So next week, we will dive deeper into PCI DSS. And so like the 3.2.1 and all the rest, we will talk and discuss about those ones for you to also have a better idea, and we will at least show some little fun stuff to do in there. And for, I think some people are asking for some information in there. What will your students be doing in the 2 months of internship? Okay, so the 2 months of internship, you'll be working on real world projects from 2 companies that we are working with, right? So for the expert people, they will be working with Arithmetic Inc., and they'll be working on an assessment on one of our clients. right? So, but it's going to be project-based, so it's not going to interfere with your normal work or like your normal schedule. So we'll be working with you on, because for an audit or an assessment, it is project-based. So we just pick a project and we are working on it. So you can work on it, and we will assign you some tasks, and you'll be in on some of the things that we're doing. For the specialist side, since you're going to be an implementer, you are going to be working in an organization and helping them to, pass an audit, right? So that is what you're going to be doing. Okay, so there's a question about PCI. Okay, so what is the difference between the specialist? So the specialist, PCI specialist course is the 3,500 or the 3,500, and the expert is 6,500, not 6,000. So 6,500, right? The difference between the two is that with the specialist, we are training you to be an implementer in an organization, right? So you know more, like way more than you need to be an implementer, right? You'll be borderline on the line of knowing exactly what like a QSA is going to do, right? With the experts. So, and also like another difference is it is a 3 months course with a 1 month of internship, right? And we also do job placement assistance for you. So we help you with prepping for the job and stuff like that, right? With the expert class, that is the 6,500, we are training you. It is going to cover everything under implementer. And you also, on the other side, we are going to train you to work as a QSA, without having that QSA title, because you are not working for a QSA company, and we've not taken you to a PCI to get that certification, right? So, but you can do the job of a QSA pretty much, right? Without you having the authority to put a stamp on and report on compliance to say that you are the one who did the audit. But you can literally do the audit. So with the expert training, you can work in a QSA company helping with audits, and you can also work in any normal company as an implementer, right? But with the specialist, you'll be working in all these companies out there as an implementer, and you can work anywhere. You can be the girl or guys spearheading their PCI DSS program. So like really what you can do is really endless in terms of PCI, right? But the 6,500 gives you that luxury of working in a QSA company, or so like that is the main difference. And plus the 6,500 is 4 months with 2 months of internship, right? So, and also that comes with job placement assistant as well. Okay. So I hope that answers your question. Are you?
Yes, thank you, sir.
Okay, so I'm going to put in some info on here. You can reach out on LinkedIn. You can give us a call. And next week, we're still going to continue with PCI. And then the following week, we will probably do ISO, right? And we'll probably do ISO, and I'll maybe do ISO and CIS. And the following week, we'll do some NIST. So if we are not able to cover most of the frameworks that I want us to cover, we will extend it, and cover almost all of it, just to give you an exposure to them and let you know that they are there and this is what it is all about, okay? Because the intent is to make sure you guys are solid cybersecurity professionals and, cybersecurity subject matter experts, and you have a lot of tools, right, in terms of what you can do and what you know. So that is the intent of this. I think so for anybody, if you go to our website, the PCI training, we have it in like our tab. You can click on the PCI training, all the details are in there, right? So it's arithmesacademy.com, www.arithmesacademy.com. Everything is on there, so you can have a look at it. I appreciate everybody's time. If there are no more questions, we'll wrap it up today. And the video or like the recording is going to be posted in the YouTube channel, and we're going to email it out to everybody as well. So have a great weekend. God willing, we'll meet again next weekend. And for the internship group, we'll meet tomorrow at 9. So if you're part of the internship tomorrow at 9, and also for PCI makeup class for the July class is tomorrow around 11. Yes, so, but everybody else, I appreciate your time. Have a blessed weekend, and we will meet next week, Friday. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Doc.